First up tonight, Busisiwe Mkhobani, our public protector. It's an office that has had a colourful and important history. It's designed to be a flag bearer, an advocate for all South Africans. It's a lofty goal to support and defend democracy. But is the office doing its job? Is the right person at the helm? Do South Africans trust the office? Let's start with this. Public Protector, good evening to you and a very warm welcome.
Good evening, Jeremy.
I want to start with the VBS scandal, if we can. It is top of mind for most South Africans. You'll be aware of how this is rolling out right now. There's a lot still to go. Have you been asked to investigate?
I haven't received any complaint, but I think yesterday I've seen on Twitter that there's a group of ENCA journalists who are in Guyana or Vembe. And they were, in fact, not, I think, Fitakhomo municipality in Pegasfort apparently is one of the municipalities which deposited their money into VBS. So I've initiated an own initiative investigation. So I requested my office to register that matter for the Limpopo office to investigate.
So formally, you can put on the record tonight that your office is now at least expressing interest in investigating this.
Definitely, or especially that one of Fitakhomo. But then we will have to as well move to Vembe and check, or even all other municipalities which deposited their money to the VBS bank account, especially because their resources should be utilized to provide services to the people. And again, what laws have been violated for them to deposit their monies into VBS, being a mutual bank, and especially having certain limitations to that particular effect.
You would give an investigation like this top priority?
Jeremy, I think again you were saying the resource constraint. We will try our level best to investigate as speedily as we can, especially because this matter is one matter which is affecting the grassroots, which are close to my heart. I mean, I was checking with one of the officials. He's from Venda, and he's been saying the father has invested in that bank and has been receiving dividends every year. And his pension was also saved in that bank. And now, since 2015, he's not receiving any source of income.
How soon would you begin work on a case like this?
We'll be registering the file. The file has been registered, I think, today. And then we will have to take possibly a month just to assess, gather information. Whoever has information, we gather that information, and thereafter, officially, then we can start and determine what issues we are going to focus on, especially against the state organs. As you know, we don't have jurisdiction over VBS.
What value do you think you might add to a probe, given that units like the Hawks, for instance, are looking at this?
Remember, the Hawks are looking into the criminality of the transaction, money laundering issues. The Public Protector will only focus on maladministration, corruption, especially if the officials of the municipalities were depositing these monies into VBS in order to perpetuate that particular corruption.
Are you horrified by all of this?
Definitely, it's very horrifying, but again, I must say I've commented that I think the regulatory bodies should have acted very much earlier, especially to stop this problem to escalate to...
When you talk about the regulatory authorities, you're talking about the Reserve Bank?
Especially the Reserve Bank.
Where do you think the Reserve Bank failed?
I mean, if they have managed to investigate this bank at an earlier age, I mean, around 2014 or 2015, and stop whatever they've been doing, you wouldn't find even municipalities, especially depositing money, because that is a violation of the MFMA in the first place. So that was not supposed to have happened.
Would it be within your remit then to also question the Reserve Bank about regulatory failure?
Remember, the Reserve Bank is a state organ in terms of the Constitution, and the Public Protector has jurisdiction over the Reserve Bank. I mean, there's nothing stopping me to find out from the Reserve Bank what other processes they put in place to make sure that they continually manage and oversee the operations of such mutual banks, including the banks.
And you would be prepared to tackle that head on as far as the Reserve Bank is concerned?
Remember, the Reserve Bank, they should know that as an organ of state, being independent, they are independent. I'm not interfering in their work, but then we are working together to make sure that we have good governance in this country. I mean, that's the pillar we are all focusing on, including them, so that we don't face the similar challenges in the future.
But at face value at this point, it would be your early contention that the Reserve Bank perhaps dropped the ball in its regulatory oversight.
I'm not saying they dropped the ball. I think it will be fair that we engage them and find out when did they pick this up? Why were they not acting earlier? And possibly they would indicate they've acted. Possibly it's not also their responsibility to take the matter forward. But the fact of the matter is, it's not blaming them or that they dropped the ball, no.
You've also been asked last week, if I'm correct, to investigate the now compromised former Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene.
Yes, a complaint was lodged by the DA, and I've accepted that complaint. It was lodged in terms of the Executive Members Ethics Act, and that act obligates the Public Protector to investigate. I don't have a discretion. So after he left, that complaint will be investigated under the Public Protector Act. And I must indicate that that complaint was one of the complaints, especially the issue of the son and the PIC, which was within the office, and that investigation is at an advanced stage.
When you talk about an advanced stage, in what respect?
We've collated a lot of evidence. We're still collating evidence. Then we will also then determine when to interview the witnesses and the implicated parties before we can then determine whether people are implicated and issue a report after that.
At which point do you accelerate the investigation into the former Finance Minister himself, though?
I mean, the very same report, especially the former finance minister, the Executive Members Ethics Act or the complaints relating to ethical leadership are not taking that long, especially on his part. We'll have to take, in fact, normally we are given 30 days to finalize that investigation.
Have you spoken to him yet?
Not yet. That will include engaging with him, writing the first letter, hearing his side of the story.
When is that going to happen?
I have investigators who are dealing with this, and Jeremy, you must acknowledge that those investigators, they've got other 20 to 30 investigations they are busy with, complex matters. So I'm hoping that at least by the end of October, we will have sent the letter and received a response from the minister.
Given the seriousness of the allegations and the admissions that were made at the Zondo Commission, though surely this one goes to the top of the in tray as far as the investigators are concerned.
All of them are very critical.
It's a critical issue. But this is more critical than others, isn't it?
Yes, they are very critical. But again, you must remember, I said to you, what is also more critical for me is the grassroots and people who are impacted. I mean, I was seeing the story about the issue of people not having water, drinking water with animals, or sometimes there's dead animals which die and they drink that. So that is, for me, the priority.
How do you weigh those priorities up when you have so many competing complaints?
I mean, there's one issue of Masiphumelele. I think you've seen that one, where you find that children are sick, they are dying, there's a lot of sicknesses, the environment is not conducive. I mean, you've seen in that particular investigation had to even subpoena the Premier and the Executive Mayor, and again subpoenaing them not to say there's anything wrong which they've done, but it's the speed with which we wanted to resolve that particular issue. So, Jeremy, I think the Public Protector is meant to be there because we are not the court of law. Our services are free. We should be the ones who are defending, as you were saying, the public and protecting the public from such incidences. Definitely, we have to balance all the issues, those high-profile ones, and the ones which are impacting directly on the people at the grassroots.
But you'll also come back to me, and we'll get to this in a moment if we can, about capacity constraint and funding. I do want to get to that. But let's take a broader view, perhaps, as far as you're concerned and your office is concerned. You will concede that the office is shrouded in controversy. There have been a number of contentious decisions and reports that you've put out, the Helen Zille tweets, the Absa issue, the Freda dairy farm, and you've come in for a fair amount of flack. How can the public still trust you in your office?
I must say that the public has a lot of confidence in the office.
How do you know that?
I know that because in the previous financial year we received around 16,000 applications. Our applications have increased to around 18,000 and more. And the public, we're engaging them. People know that, you cannot judge the public protector. And again, it's up to whose standard that the public confidence is doubting, or the public is doubting the confidence of the public protector. Yes.
But the reality is you are going to be judged by cases like the Absa Bank issue, where you actually said afterwards that valuable lessons had been learnt by you and your office as far as that's concerned. That's an admission of a mistake. That's how the public is going to judge you, surely.
Certain area or certain individuals will take it like that. And I must indicate that that Absa report, it's still a matter of which is still before court, because certain judgments which resulted in the personal cost order, in fact, the matter will be heard on the 27th of November at the Constitutional Court.
You recommended that Absa pay back the money. You also recommended that the Reserve Bank should change its mandate. Why don't you tell me tonight that you overreached with that one, that you made a huge mistake?
No, I didn't overreach, and I think let's not deliberate on it that much, as I'm saying that matter is still a subject which is before court. And I think let's rather not dwell much. But remember, again, I never said Absa. I said SIU should conduct the investigation, knowing that SIU has the mandate for civil litigation. So that was still going to be a process for the SIU to interview, to check the information, to determine whether there is any money which needs to be.
Right. I take your point that you want to dwell too much on this, and it is something which is still before the courts. But if you had a do-over, would you issue that same report?
You know, the Absa report, again, I agreed that it was the issue of how the remedial action was structured, especially the peremptory nature of the remedial action. But then I would still do the report and make sure that the wording of that particular remedial action is in such a way that it will have to at least bring redress to the South Africans. Because the public protector, in terms of the Constitutional Court judgment, the remedial actions should be in such a way that they bring a redress to those who are prejudiced by the conduct of a state organ. And I think that's what I would say, Jeremy.
Fair enough. I asked you whether the public could still trust your office. Let's go to Pretoria very quickly. I'm hoping that Warren is still on the line. Warren, good evening to you.
Good evening, Jeremy.
Go ahead, please.
I've got a question for the public protector. Public protector, to start off, number one, let me ask you a question. Okay, fine. First and foremost, when you took the office, most of the recommendations by the former public protector, you took them on review. Fair and square enough. I don't know whether you're trying to be smart or what. Let's leave it. Estina Dairy Farm. To this moment, nothing has ever came forward. The last one, the group they came in, they chowed our money, they went to Dubai. Out of all those things, there's nothing that you have ever taken us as the community into your confidence. At the end of the day, I've lost respect for you, and I will never, ever, ever have respect for you. Thank you very much.
How do you respond to Warren?
Warren, unfortunately, I don't have jurisdiction over the Guptas. And Warren, you know that the state of capture report, which was issued by my predecessor, we have the Zondo Commission now. And the Zondo Commission, I'm glad that there's that commission, though there's a lot of money which will be wasted there. But they will determine whether the Guptas have stolen all the monies and have taken those monies over to Dubai. I can't comment on that because I don't want to comment on something which I don't have information on. And most remedial actions, I must indicate that out of the 51 reports I've issued, only 14 of those reports were taken on judicial review. And I must say it's because of the Constitutional Court judgment, because now the remedial actions of the public protector, state organs know that they are binding. Therefore, they have a right to take them on judicial review. Taking a matter on judicial review, it doesn't mean that the office has done shoddy work, but then people want to defend themselves, and of which is within their right to do that. Unfortunately, that also bothers around the issue of them, especially the state organs, in terms of the Constitution, not supporting the public protector.
I want to talk about the parlous financial position that your office finds itself in. Debts exceed liability by 26 million rand, am I correct? You'll accept that figure.
It's a deficit.
You're
Yes.
technically bankrupt.
Definitely, that's what the Auditor General
So
said.
how can you service the public effectively?
It's an accumulative deficit, and I must indicate that we are able to pay our employees. That is not impacted. The only thing, again, the problem, serious problem, is that since the three public protectors, Mushwana, Madonsela, have been complaining about the very same thing, and it's an accumulative deficit since 2006.
Whose fault is it?
No one's fault. The problem is that when we do not receive enough allocations from Treasury, and now the problem is that Treasury is also now cutting our budget. And if you cut from the baseline, then that's a problem, because always you will accumulate that particular deficit. But I must indicate that irrespective of that, we are operational. We are a constitutional institution. We will never reach a stage where it's closed shop. We are able to pay our employees, and there's still money which is there for us to run the operations of the office.
But for how much longer? You say you're underfunded. I think your budget is around 305 million rand a year, if I'm not mistaken. How much more do you need in order to be absolutely effectively operational?
You know, to be effectively operational, we've said it the last financial year, that if we can get, our budget can be around 800 million.
So it's more than double, in other words?
Yes, we can fill all the posts, especially the core function posts, especially investigative staff. And we will be able to be operational, especially also having our staff working in a safe environment, making sure that we have all the tools of trade, and we are able also to get the expert advice.
Your answer is suggesting, a public protector, that because you don't have enough money, you're not operational right now.
No, we are. I mean, Jeremy, we've finalized around 18,000 applications or complaints, and I've issued 51 reports. So we are working irrespective of that. We are finding innovative ways to deliver services to the public. And that's why the Vision 2023, one of the pillars was to encourage organs of state to establish complaints mechanism. I mean, I attended the SARS, the Tax Ombudsman 5-year report or annual report launch. I could see that this financial year as well, they finalized 3,000 complaints. And if we didn't have the Tax Ombudsman, those applications were going to be lodged with the public protector. But I'm glad that these internal mechanisms are working. Hence, these 3 months, I was going around the provinces.
But that's not what the Auditor General says. The Auditor General says you lack proper mechanisms to prevent non-compliance with legislation. So he has a completely different view as far as
on that one, it's procurement. That the AG's findings are relating to procurement and the supply chain management. And I must indicate that in that particular aspect, the posts were not filled, especially senior management level. We had junior officials. And those contracts, again, it's issues which have been recurring, because some of them you find that the contract has expired and the process was never followed then, but then the contract is still valid. So those are the things which we have an action plan. We have now the new CFO to deal with it, and the CEO.
Why are you looking for an apology from Parliament?
You know, on that particular aspect, Parliament is supposed to be supporting and protecting institutions like Chapter 9 institutions, all institutions which are there to support constitutional democracy. And on the 6th of March, especially what transpired in Parliament, where then I had to account for reports which have issued, reports which are before court.
Are you being victimized by members of Parliament?
No, I won't say I'm being victimized.
So why do you want an apology then?
I didn't even say they must apologize. I told them in my response what are my responsibilities and where are they also violating the Constitution, especially Section 181(3), where they are the ones who are supposed to support this institution. But now I'm expected, or I'm exposed, or I'm feeling as if you know, I'm not receiving that particular support. I've never, in the letter I've responded to, I never said they must apologize. Anyway, I wouldn't answer how people write or the articles which people are writing.
I have a final question for you. It seems to me that you are perpetually on the ropes, that you're being attacked from every quarter. Do you regret taking this job?
No, I don't regret, and I'm still here to serve South Africans. And, you know, I receive joy when I see the Masiphumelele people or those children playing in those clean water which do not have any excrements and stuff like that. I enjoy when I see the contractors in Northwest, the Vugupile, where then the department is agreeing to revive their contracts. I get joy when a person is excited that they have an ID which they've been struggling to get and they are able to apply.
That's the positive side, but when you receive criticism after your report on the Helen Zille tweets from Professor Pierre de Vos, who said the report you wrote was legal nonsense, that is a serious indictment against your capability. You must be embarrassed when you read something like that.
It's embarrassing of him, being a professor of law, commenting like that. I think he should have commented, he should have read Section 96 of the Constitution, the Executive Members Ethics Act, and there's an existing matter which was investigated of the former Premier of Mpumalanga, Mahlangu, who said it's okay for politicians to lie, and the then Selby Baqwa had a finding against him. So, and that's where we recommended, the then Public Protector recommended that the Executive Members Ethics Act is needed. So it's so embarrassing that coming from him, being a law professor.
I thank you for joining us tonight.
That's
the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, still ahead on Jane Dutton tonight. We're going to take a look at SASSA's introduction of mobile social grant payout trucks. Now, in a climate of cash in transit heists, is this really the best solution?